This is your average preset tactic fan. He's smiling through the pain, having just surrendered 5 goals in a home match against the worst team in the league. His life is slowly crumbling around him. He can barely afford the toaster-level laptop that he's currently running the match engine in 2D on, because he has no other options. He probably still plays FIFA in his free time, and he actually spends money on his ultimate team. But this is your average asymmetrical tactic enjoyer. He's actually been outside in the last 3 days. He remembers to shower, shave, and brush his teeth. He's got 4 wonderkids in his starting lineup from Colombia, and 1 from Uzbekistan. He managed to go to sleep before 4 a.m. last night because he won that one more game he kept telling himself about. Oh yeah, just look at that smile. It's really hot in this thing. I'm sweating. Asymmetrical tactics are incredibly intimidating. They're sorts of things you do not want to mess with until you really know what you're doing. So congratulations, by the end of this video, you'll really know what you're doing, because we're going to talk about why asymmetrical tactics can work and how to properly implement them. To do that, we're going to do a little show and tell from my save that I've been doing on Twitch, which if you haven't heard about, then clearly this is the first video you're ever watching. So check the link down in the description, join the Twitch community there, watch me play Football Manager live, or go to this super cool live channel where you can watch edited versions of the streams. They're episodic. They're like 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah, I did just work the word episodic into a video. What the frick is up, dude? It was my word of the day. Okay. But anyways, here we are in Oriental Dragon. This is the save. This is what's happened so far this season. Let's go into a match where there was a lot of goals. We played at home against Olympiacos in the Champions League. I know, wonderful draw, right? And this is the formation we played. It is asymmetrical. There are a lot of different insane asymmetrical formations that people have come up with to play. And on the scale of all crazy asymmetrical things, this is not the craziest asymmetrical formation you will see. But it is asymmetrical, and all asymmetrical formations have the same point. Section 1. Why? To me, there are 2 reasons to use an asymmetrical tactic. The first one is you have a collection of talented players that do not fit on the field in a normal tactic. This is the reason that with my Oriental Dragon save on Twitch, we decided to start using an asymmetrical tactic, and then we've recruited for that tactic and we've just stuck with it. But it started because we had 2 great strikers and 1 great winger, but we didn't want to play, and if we pull up our little tactic view here, a 4-2-2-2 where you have 2 midfielders, 2 aggressive wingers, and 2 strikers. We didn't have a good second winger anyways. We had 2 good strikers, we had 1 good winger. So we came up with the tactic you just saw. The second reason is to try and exploit a weakness you think a specific opponent has. This would usually mean that you're inside of a match and you look to make a change that turns your tactic asymmetrical to try and apply significant pressure on a portion of the team you think is weak, that you think you should go after. Like maybe they had a player sent off, they're leaving space on one half of the field, so now you go asymmetrical to put pressure on that half of the field. You understand what I'm saying? Or they're playing a specific tactic and you feel like you have a nice asymmetrical tactic that your team fits that can just blow them up. Get people in spots they're not expecting. But that brings us to section 2. Section 2. How? And I'm going to put this in gigantic, shining bold letters so that you understand. Asymmetrical formations are designed to create overloads. Overloads. They're designed to create overloads. You want to put people in places that they're not normally supposed to be, and you want them to be there all the time. On the flip side of the coin, right? So we got, that's the good side. Now we're on the bad side. On the bad side, putting players in positions they don't expect opens you up to a counter in a position that's not normally open for the opposition. In my case, where is that space? I'll give you a look at the tactic. Just stare at it longingly for like 5 seconds. I forgot to count. I think that was 5. Okay. This right here. That's open and a problem, and something that I have to deal with in order to create a 2-striker, 1 winger, 3 midfielder formation, which is what I wanted. So the point that we're going to pick up in this game, with ODFC, we're already up 5-1. But this is just an example of how having these players in this position can immediately set us up to make a play. So if you noticed, and we look back at the tactic again, I have a central striker and a left forward and a right wing. The idea behind this is that the central forward is going to occupy the center backs in a way a central forward normally does, while the left forward is going to be the snake in the grass, living in the channel. And the moment that right center back commits to try and defend against the center forward, they're toast. They take one step that way and they're done, because we have a forward there that they're not used to being responsible for. So let's watch what happens as my boy Malashevsky decides to clear the ball. We're going to win it. This is the winger. That's Ja Silva. He's dropped in to defend. If you put the winger on support, they actually get pretty deep. He does a nice job of heading the ball into the middle, but who I want you to watch is Buizen Philander. I am not making that name up. He's South Africa's number 9, and he is a star for us. He is the left forward. Armando Pereira is the center forward. He's the guy highlighted now. So Pereira is going to drop in and receive the ball. This guy took one step, if we look at the beginning of this play, towards Armando Pereira. Coming towards Armando Pereira, that opens up the channel for Buizen Philander. Now, that's not a lot. But when you have a player of the quality of Armando Pereira, it's enough. This guy's trying to recover his position. Buizen's in place, and there's your goal. What celebration did we get? My favorite. Now, the chicken is my favorite, I think. There's another advantage to the specific asymmetric formation that I'm using is when you get the ball wide on one flank, if they're playing a back 4, you end up with a 1v1 situation because the left central midfielder, this guy right here, Anssi Karolainen, he's on attack, which means he'll get in the box when the ball's in the right flank, and when the ball's in the left flank, well, then my 3 forwards are there. I've combined this with the fact that my left back is a particularly gifted crosser, and the fact that it's offset and kind of pinched in with the left forward well inside that outside fullback. That means that we're much more likely to get the 3-on-3 matchup inside the box. So that when a cross comes in, it's 1-on-1 across the board, and we're able to find an easy goal. That's Pierre Diaz, by the way. Sorry, I didn't point him out. Here's an example from the other direction. That attacking midfielder I just talked about, Anssi Karolainen, he's going to get himself in the box. The midfielders don't naturally follow him defensively. It's a 3-on-3. Then he heads it home. I am creating a nightmare situation for the opposition back 4. They either have to use an extra defender or a midfielder to drop deep on both sides to cover that up so that their 4 defenders can stay in the box and create an advantage. That, or they just let me go 1-on-1 off crosses and run into channels when we play the ball into the middle. But like I said, that unusual look that has created these opportunities both for crosses and for through balls that I didn't necessarily have before does come at a cost. Right, it comes at a space that I am allowing the opposition to work their way in. There are ways you can try and counter this, and I think that an asymmetrical tactic can definitely be the most effective tactic you have if you have the personnel to counteract any holes you're leaving. But it's still, no matter what, is going to be a weakness that the opposition will look to exploit. That's what the opposition AI is trying to do. So in the layout right now, this is my left central midfielder, a guy named Walter Mabasso. So his job is covering over in that side space. And what you'll notice is when there's nobody over there, that left midfielder is going to run all the way to the line. All the way to the line to close people down. They'll go all the way into that space because there's nobody else there, and you, particularly if you have like a high closing down on, but the player's going to get more tired. This isn't one of those things where you just plug in natural fitness and minutes played. It's keeping track of how far people run, and so if you're asking somebody to cover more ground, they will get tired faster. I'm subbing my left central mid almost every game. I also have a defensive midfielder named Nikolaos Katsikis, who is very willing to work and run. He is a screening midfielder with very little offensive talent. So he also, as you notice, is down here in the corner defending as the ball comes in the first time. It bounces out to Moreno. Mabasso closes it down and everything resets. Daher is my left back in this situation. He was pinched in for the first defensive wave, but now he's going to have to come out as Katsikis recovers his position. And for that, we will slow it down. You see the ball goes back to Nico, and as Daher is trying to push the lineup, Segredo is going to be able to get into the corner. Daher is running to close down, and Mabasso, who is a central midfielder on attack, starts to peel off of his defensive duty. He's not coming all the way down into the corner. Katsikis is kind of shading it. So it's not like there's just this giant gaping hole in your team that nobody's closing down, but people aren't quite sure how to defend it. The better your tactical familiarity, the more they're going to be able to cover this space, but it's never going to be perfect. In any asymmetrical asymmetrical tactic you ever play. The issue with this tactic defensively is that when Daher is able to block the cross, this ball comes to Nico, and there's nobody immediately available to close him down. Mabasso, who you see up there, he is not willing to come all the way down to this point because he's on attack. Katsikis has a very long run from a central defensive midfield position to get here and close down Nico, who's got the time to pick out a cross, and in this case, that makes me pay. But with Katsikis and Karl Lehnen, who are both willing to work hard in my starting lineup, Mabasso another one of those guys, and Daher being a solid defender with a really good engine, I feel comfortable allowing that extra space in order for me to get an extra striker on the field. But of course, when I want to see out a game, I have a contingency plan to drop one of my players down to the left wing position so that I once again have a balanced tactic with no obvious holes. And you should too. This is not a zero-sum game. You don't just pick asymmetrical or symmetrical and stick with that for the rest of your life. I change my tactics during games all the time. I'll bring these guys down here, even if they can't play there at all. I'll drop them down to a 4-5-1 if I'm really worried about seeing out a game. But if I'm confident that we're going to be able to hang defensively and stay open in this area, I will go with my asymmetrical because I believe it gives us the best chance to win. If I feel like we need a little more offense, I'm not afraid to throw this one up there as well. Then Urawath is essentially responsible for this entire space, which is giving up, if I'm playing against a 4-2-3-1, which let's superimpose a 4-2-3-1 over this, you see their attacking midfielder would then have the run of that space when Urawath gets dragged away, but it's obviously more offensive. This is a complete overwhelming overload for the defense. It's staggered, and at points the right center back can feel like he's guarding 3 people. Let's look at a couple of other asymmetrical things that people typically like to do. This can work as long as this person's responsible defensively, because they are responsible for a lot. Or you end up with something that looks like that. I've seen people break this out before. This person's essentially running box to box, and this can be used to counter a particularly threatening like inside forward that's coming off this side, and your ball winner is going to be directly in their way every time. Moving your attacking midfielder back and forth can be useful to try and separate from a lone ball winning midfielder that's giving you problems. Just make sure they're not running into your winger. And if you really want to go nuts, this sort of thing works too. But the recently retired Fox in the Box, who used to be the master of this on old showdowns, I would recommend watching his performances in old streamer showdowns in order to really understand how to do strikerless. I don't think anybody's ever been able to do it as well as him. But there's a last note that I want you to understand that I talk about in a lot of tactical videos. It's that the position of the player is the starting point, and their instructions, their role, which lead to their instructions, that is what they're going to do from that starting point. So you can create overloads. You can create overwhelming numbers of players in the face of the enemy from a basic starting position. The enemy, ooh, that sounded spicy. An inverted wingback on this side and an inside forward would completely overwhelm the interior defense of the right side of your opponent, leaving the right back to do basically nothing. If you wanted to overwhelm the fullback, a Metsala winger combination would accomplish that goal. You've got somebody running at the channel and you have somebody running outside of the channel. Like if you pull up a map of a basic 4-4-2, there's the channel and there's outside of the channel. That's where your players would be, and you'd have a 2v1 on the fullback. It's possible to do that and anything else you can think of to overwhelm players out of something like a basic 4-3-3. It's also possible for this formation to be disturbingly normal. If I came in and made this guy a Carolero and made this guy a DLP, Fall's just running around, and this guy's a false 9. Well, Carolero is going to be out in this area playing defense as kind of a left winger on a 4-4-2. If Diaz is on support, he's going to be dropping in here. The DLP on support is going to end up next to Fall as Sabia's out in the channel. We're playing a 4-4-2. It just looks really dumb. It honestly could work. The false 9 would be dropping in here if we had a wing back flying around the... I'm going to keep staring at this and giving myself ideas. The position is the starting point. So only play asymmetrical if you feel like that starting point is going to give you an advantage and your players are going to be able to recover defensively from that starting point. But players also aren't stupid. They will follow the danger. So don't be afraid to try this and see if your defense can get in position. Let me know how it goes in the comments. I'll see you guys in another stream. Thank you so much for watching. Zealand, out. Actually, it takes me a while to stand up. I'm kind of getting old.